Welcome to the Church Office podcast. My name's Gavin Smith, and I'm involved with the Church Office in starting it and running it. And it's lovely to have John on again with us. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Great to be here.
It's lovely. Yeah, John and I did a podcast on capacity that's available on the website, and really worth diving into and having a listen to that. I haven't heard loads of people talking about capacity as church administrators, so definitely worth listening to. I've prepped John today to ask questions to him, and everything's on the table. We can ask him anything we like. And first of all, just want to say thank you to all those who responded through the UCAN forum or through Facebook or personal emails or texts to say, I'd like to fire this question at John. So we've got 10 questions to ask you, John, a range of different things, and looking forward to kind of hearing your wisdom on it, mate.
Not sure about that. We'll see how we go.
Are you ready? Right, spotlight's
Yep.
on you. And
Okay.
Here's the first question. Okay, so the first question is, how do you protect yourself as a church administrator from burnout?
And I need to say that Gavin has given me these questions in advance. I've had a few minutes to think about them before this.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could say so much about that, but three things occurred to me. Three key things. And obviously all these have got to be fairly simplistic answers in the short time that we got available. The first thing, you save yourself from burnout by keeping your eye on the big picture. Now, that may sound a strange thing to say, but if I'm doing a sort of self-management course for ministers, we spend the whole of the first session on big picture, your life, your ministry, God himself and his plan for your life.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to protect yourself from burnout, don't lose the big picture. Why are you here? You're a child of God, you're a disciple of his. And what is it that your ministry is all about?
Yeah.
Keep your discipleship right at the start there. And that may need time out to think about this and to pray about it.
Yeah.
Therefore, for burnout, if you're absolutely panicking because there's so much to do, the first thing to do is to take time out.
Yeah.
It sounds absolutely ridiculous, but
Yeah.
it is the way to go. Secondly, Sermon on the Mount, a day at a time.
Yeah.
Sufficient unto the day, as the old authorized version is, the evil thereof. And if you know my to-do diary system, it's described in Article A51 in the resources section of my website.
Yeah.
What that does is put responsibility of a to-do list and engagements all together on one day, on a diary day. And that means that you only give yourself in a day what you can cover in a day, allowing for interruptions and everything else. And that means you can, at the end of the day, put a tick against everything you've done, put a cross against things you haven't, and move them to a different day, and then go to bed with the day complete.
Yes.
Burnout comes because you never get through the to-do list.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do in A51, Article A51 on the website, is to give you a means whereby it follows the Sermon on the Mount principle, and you end up with actually completing every day, going to bed, and tomorrow is a new day.
Yeah, that's helpful. That's wise. And I have seen your article, John. I think it's excellent. So yeah, good.
And I think the third thing I would just say out of many possibilities is learn to say no.
Yes.
Too many Christians are too nice.
Mm.
And if they're asked to do something, you just always say yes. Now, there's in a church administrator role, there are contractual positions, of course, where you have to say yes.
Yeah.
But where can you say, are there things that you're actually saying yes because you want to be nice?
Yes.
And we need to remember that can lead to burnout, and if not to burnout in ourselves, to bad relationships with other people in marriage and children and things like that need us. But big picture, day at a time, don't be frightened to say no, would be three of my top tips in that area. But
fantastic.
There's so much more I could say.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that's brilliant, John. Okay, question number 2. My senior leader is gracious with me, but I find it hard to deal with my own mistakes and failures. Can you help? So they're obviously working in an environment where people are gracious with them, but we talked about it on the last podcast, didn't we, about perfectionism and so how would you help somebody in that situation, John?
I know the feeling, and we've got feelings of guilt And a lot of my self-management work, especially with ministers, but also with administrators, is dealing with guilt. Okay, so you recognize you're making mistakes. That's a really good start.
Yes.
And I would say, first of all, analyze the mistakes you're making. You make a blunder. You spell somebody's name wrong. Let's take something really serious. You spell somebody's name wrong on the Sunday bulletin or something like that, and they're mad with you because name is important to them. Okay, so sit down quietly and think, why did I get that wrong? Answer, because I'm no good at proofing what I've written, and none of us is actually. Solution, do I need to get somebody else to proof the bulletin before it hits the road, as it were? So don't just sort of think, oh, I'm making mistakes. Think about each one, analyze it, and try and think of a solution that would avoid you making the same mistake again. And it may be putting something into post like a proofreader or something like that.
John, can I stop you there? Sorry.
Yeah.
I think somebody, for some reason my phone went through my computer for some weird reason. Do you mind if we start that question again?
No, that's fine.
Apologies.
As long as you do remember to delete that first bit.
Yeah, I'll delete that first bit. Yeah. Okay, let me ask the second question. Okay, question number 2, John. My senior leader is gracious with me, but I find it hard to deal with my own mistakes and failures. So there's an awareness that they're getting things wrong and they're not applying grace to themselves. They're saying, can you help? How could we address that and serve somebody here?
Oh, I sort of really hear the hurt within that. And there's guilt there. And a lot of my work on self-organization is trying to help people get away from feeling guilty that they're failing, that they're not doing stuff when they don't need to feel guilty. I think the first thing I'd say is list the mistakes you've made recently and analyze each one to thinking, what could I do to avoid making this one again? Okay, I've made it. That's the past. But for the future, what could I do to avoid it? So let's say you've spelt somebody's name wrong in the bulletin or the email that goes out to everybody each week. And they're furious with you because names are important. And they've got a strange spelling of their Christian name and you got it wrong. Yeah. So I would then think, okay, why did I get it wrong? Because I'm rubbish at proofing my own material. I know how to spell it. I just got it wrong, or the autocorrect got it wrong, or something like that. Yeah. So how could I get around that? Ask somebody else to proof the bulletin before it goes out. Is there somebody who could proofread the stuff I've done, even if it takes another half hour and delays the process a bit? Okay, let's do that and put that in place. So you're dealing with each little mistake you've made. Yeah. What can I do that's practical to get it right next time? Yeah. And you're just seeking on. So that's, I think, would be the first thing I would say. Obviously, pray about it. Yes. Are there reasons why you're making mistakes? If you're in a church office, is it because there's so many people coming into the church office and disrupting you that's causing the mistakes you're making? Mm-hmm. What can we do about that? Does that mean the bulletin, if that's still an illustration to use, should be done from a different location at a different time of the week? Yeah. Can we do something in a systems way that changes the way we do this to avoid the mistake? Yeah. Because I know that when I'm just trying to deal with reception facilities at the same time as do the bulletin, I'm liable to make mistakes. Yeah. So again, you're thinking about, could we change the system in some way? Yeah, that's useful. I think that's probably enough on that one. Yeah, I think that's great. John. All right, question number 3. And these are all different random topics here. How do you train the next generation for church administration? Oh, wow. I've never been asked that one before. That's great. How do we do this? I love it. And certainly we need the next generation taking over from people like me at my age. You're still young. Go back? Yeah, thank you. Can I go back to when I was a late teens, early 20s? Yeah. And I was taught administration at a series of Christian holiday children's camps activities by a very gifted administrator. and I owe him so much. And what did he do with me? He saw something in me, got me into the team with him, and then gave me huge responsibility at great risk to himself.
Okay.
And I mucked up once or twice.
Okay.
Those are in the days of ink stencil duplicators. I once put don't worry if you haven't even heard of these things. I once put an inked up wax piece of material, all been typed up, onto his briefcase, forgetting the ink comes through on the other side, and left the whole printed address list, I think it was, on his briefcase, his leather briefcase. He forgave me.
Oh no.
He forgave me.
Yeah.
But he let me make mistakes like that because he was giving me responsibility. So the first thing I'd say is take risks, get ink on your briefcase, as it were, in whatever form that takes today. Secondly, I think I'd say expect them to do things in a different way from the way you've done them. And that isn't wrong. Silly example, let's take UCAN. I handed UCAN over to a group of wonderful people, a new team, 4 years ago, to take it on from me. And they've done membership in a completely different way. High tech, I couldn't have done that. And I just rejoice because I couldn't have done anything like what they've done, but they've done it in a completely different way. It's all automated now. It's all on Church Suite. It's fantastic, but I couldn't have done that. So I could have said, that's the wrong way to do it. Let me show you the way I've done it and you can do it that way. And it would still be in the dinosaur age if they were doing that, but they've done it in a completely different way. And we need to expect that. But then thirdly, I think I'd add, share your enthusiasm, your passion for administration as a ministry for God's work. Just let them see that you're passionate about it.
Yes.
And that'll be infectious.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's great. Yeah. And there's opportunities in church, isn't it, when we're doing events or something like that, and they are a great opportunity to draw younger people involved, get involved in, the whole thinking around an event, the running an event, the after evaluation of it and what we do differently. So take people on that journey with you.
Slightly different area. I was in a church very recently where they're high tech with live streaming and everything. They've got 5, I think, cameras. There's a lot of investment in tech, and and who was on the visuals and the sound back at the sound desk and the visuals desk? Teenagers. Teenagers were choosing which picture showed on the live stream next of the 5 cameras. We're zooming cameras in on things.
Love it.
Huge responsibility for that church. They were trusting teenagers to do it, and it was great.
And it was fantastic. Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, draw them into those things. Great. Okay, next question. Do you think there's a recommended length of time somebody should stay in a post?
Do you want the short answer or the long one?
Yeah, both.
Short answer is no.
No length of time. Yeah.
The slightly longer one is, it's a good question to ask. Have I outstayed my welcome? And I would bring it up if you have an annual review or even a 6-monthly review of your role, ask that question. Have I outstayed my welcome? Because I know some administrators, I'm afraid, who have outstayed their welcome.
Okay.
And are holding things back in a church. And they get to retirement age, but they still keep going. It's wonderful that they want to serve, but actually it's causing problems.
Yeah.
And I'm asking the same about my own life at the moment, about retirement and things like that. Am I getting in the way of God's work in what I'm doing? And it's a question we all ought to ask. And it may not be for retirement and issues like that. It may be sort of moving on to something else or handing over to somebody else. Am I stopping somebody else fulfilling a ministry role by sticking here myself? So I would keep asking the question and ask your friends and family. But no, there's no, some do it for a year or two, some do it for 10, 20, 30 years. It's wonderful servants of the Lord. There's no right answer.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Thank you very much. All right, next question. Aren't church administrators really church deacons? Why do people use a different name? That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, that's an unusual one. Church administrators are church deacons. If you're going back to the pastoral epistles and taking the word deacon from there, But normally we talk about a church administrator as a post, and a formal post in a church's staff. You can't call them the church deacon because, again, the pastoral epistles know nothing about the deacon.
Yeah,
they have a team of deacons. If you're in a Church of England church, you have a slight problem here because a deacon is somebody completely different.
Yeah, it's different again, isn't it?
Somebody ordained in their first year of ministry.
Yeah.
It's a lovely word, a diakonos, the Greek word it comes from, a servant ministry. So church administrators, I think, do fit pretty well into the deacon category of 1 Timothy 3 and so on and so forth. But I think to call them the church deacon would not be a correct use of biblical language.
Yeah.
The idea of a church administrator is something that communicates, people understand, an operations manager, a church coordinator, whatever you want to call them. You don't have to call them church administrator.
Yeah, church managers, yeah.
All sorts of different possibilities.
That's great. Lovely. Yeah, it's a different kind of question, but it's something that I'm reading into more. There's a couple of new books out about deacons, and I think it's a topic I'd like to talk more about and think about more. So yeah, excited to do that.
If you want to look more at deacons, I'm just thinking, have a look at article A46 on my website, which is called Redefining Management, and looks at what the biblical concept of deacon and how it applies today.
Great. Lovely. Fab. Yeah, we can check that out. That sounds good. Okay, next question then, John. You're firing through these, mate. Legend. Okay, I always feel like I'm the person saying no to everything. It creates tension, and I don't know what to do differently. So you've got somebody who's kind of the handbrake, who's saying, oh, hang on, let's slow down, or let's stop here. And I guess we've all been in those sort of similar situations, and we as administrators, dealing with the crazy ideas sometimes that come from the ministry team. They've got another thought on how to do something differently. How would you input that? There's a person behind this, isn't there? Who's working in this situation, and it's not easy.
I love the question, because I'm not usually dealing with people who say yes all the time.
Yeah,
and create real problems for that. So I'm teaching people how to say no. I've been doing it on the podcast earlier this morning. But here's the other way around. And I know what you mean. You're the administrator, and people say, can't I take the key home for the weekend? Can't I do this? Can't I do that? And the answer is, on health and safety grounds, on safeguarding grounds, on common sense grounds, no. But you're the person, you're the office dragon or whoever who prepares to say all this. I suppose I would just say, first of all, make sure that no is the right answer, and just need to say that. And again, watch, it's not your perfectionism that's saying no. Yeah. It might be quite all right. So just try and say yes if you can. But if you're there to protect the legality of something, or the common sense of something, or the spirituality of something, you may need to be saying no. How do you say it? Can you say it with charm? Can you teach yourself to be charmingly saying no?
With humility, that's right.
Rather than office dragon saying no.
Yeah.
Can you explain the reasons? There's a danger in it over-explaining, because then they'll argue against you.
Yeah.
You can't take the key home for the weekend because ... Well, you can trust me, surely. You've got to be a little bit careful. Yeah. But can you just explain there is a reason why I'm saying no?
Yeah.
What about somebody coming into the church office, if it's an administrator, and dumping all their stuff down and just saying, can you give me a cup of coffee? And if you say, no, I'm here to work, that comes across very negatively.
Yeah.
If you say, I'd love to help, but I'm sorry, my job description really doesn't allow me. I'm told I must get on and get this job done, or else you won't have this done on Sunday. Is there anything you can do like that with charm and with a smile? And I think a lot of it is actually person skills of how to say no, rather than the sort of negative way of doing it. It's great fun saying no with a smile and charm.
Yeah.
but again, unless I knew specifically what the issues were, it's a bit difficult to be more specific than that.
It is. I think you're spot on there, isn't it? It's about how we say no. It's about how we engage with people around the kind of disagreements and trying to work out the practice for different things.
The other thing you can do is limit the availability. So if somebody says, I need to chat to you, say, well, I've got 5 minutes, but I'm afraid at the end of 5 minutes, I must get back to this. And say it might have been 20 minutes if you let it go. But at the end of 5, you say, no, we've had the 5 minutes. I really must get on because I've got to this visit. And they feel that they've been heard. They've been listened to. Their 5 minutes was sufficient.
Yeah.
Whereas if you didn't do that, it would be 20 minutes of your time gone.
Yeah, I think that's right, isn't it? And I think there's been times where I've had to work through this with our team. And by going through the process of saying no and working through the reasons why we said no, sometimes it helps clarify and actually makes the project or the event or whatever we're trying to do that bit better, because they've got a broader understanding of where I'm coming from. And so I think that we need to make sure that the way that we do it is important, but also patience with the person that we are saying no with, isn't it? And that will make a difference into the end result of what we're trying to do.
It may sound silly, but actually you need, when I'm training people how to say no who always say yes, one of the things I say is always use the word no. Some of us as Christians sort of curl ourselves up with embarrassment and say, I'd really love to help you, but I'm really in a difficult position here. And we can't get the word no out. I just find it so much helpful to say, I'm sorry, the answer has to be no.
Yeah.
Perhaps for this reason.
Yeah.
Tough. Use the word no.
Yeah.
It's really helpful.
Yeah, that's useful. And the kind of taking longer to answer the question might be the thing that's bringing the tension as well, that just sometimes people need that clarity to say, no, I can do that, can't do that. Great. Okay, next question then, relating to pay scales. Is there a recognized pay scale for church administrators and operations jobs for churches? Is there a go-to place, John, for this?
Well, there is no recognized pay scale, is the first thing. And that's not surprising because the churches are so different. The people employed may be early retirement, maybe needing a full-time salary, maybe somebody, who doesn't need that.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of differences. Having said that, UCAN produced that.
Okay. Benchmarking survey. Okay.
So 2019, which goes through a whole range of churches and includes sections on finance and salaries and things like that. So you could see what the benchmarking survey came up with. If you're a member of UCAN, you can get that. You can buy that resource. And there was similar resources by Global Connections for this is agency salary survey. They've got a church salary survey. Some of those are a bit dated now, going back about 6 or 7 years. But the basic answer is no. Sorry.
Yeah. And I think the benchmarking thing from UCAN is great, but I think also they've got a service, haven't they, where they advertise church administrator jobs, and the history of those jobs have got pay scales attached to them. And so you can look at job descriptions there that other people are doing and get some information to compare stuff to if you're looking to employ a church administrator. Or
those tend to be more operational direction, more senior posts. The sort of ordinary church administrators often don't get advertised much beyond the church membership.
Yeah, that's true.
For a church member, if you've got an occupational requirement, you can have a church member. But here again, I would say if it's that sort of level, I would try and peg it to what a local employment agency is offering for a similar level of responsibility. Yeah.
We're always looking for some comparisons, aren't we? So. That answers that, John. That's great. Okay, next question. I need help chairing meetings. What are your top 3 recommendations?
Can I have top 5?
Top 5. You can have top 5. Yeah, go for it, John. Yeah.
Because I've got that on my website. How do you chair meetings? Hang on, this is a whole day's training event which I run. So I've got 1 minute. 1 minute to answer it. What I say is, for help those who chair, if you're chairing a meeting, it's a wonderful responsibility. I love doing it myself.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to get to an output at the end.
Yes.
Training Notes 13, TN 13, in the resources section of my website is called a purpose statement for those who chair. There is also a much longer article on the website, which is Article A5, which I liken the chair of a meeting to the conductor of an orchestra. And I work all that through. So Article A5 for the detail, Training Notes 13 on the website for the basics. And the basics are CHAIR, mnemonic coming up, clarity. Your first job is to bring clarity to the meeting so that everyone knows where they've got to, what's going on. They're not in a fog. The discussion, you've clarified where you've got to, what's been agreed and what hasn't been agreed so far, and where we're going to and what we need to do next. So clarity is hugely important. Harmony, that's C of chair, H of chair is harmony. We're working not in unison. You've got people with different views, different backgrounds, disagreements, that's fine. But there's got to be a harmony of bringing it all together so we all respect each other, love each other.
That's good.
And work like that. Thirdly, agreement. You're trying to come to agreement on particular decisions on some items. It's no good just leaving it up in the air at the end of the meeting. You want to have decided, we have decided to do this by this date, and so will be actually responsible for making sure it happens.
Yes.
You need to get to some specifics if you're in the chair. And not say, let's just leave that one and move on. That's so demoralizing. CHAI, involvement. Can you bring everybody in? Some of the most wise people in a meeting are the people who say nothing. I do believe
that's true.
If you're in the chair, can you say, Bill, you're looking intelligent on this. Do you have any view on this? Don't embarrass them. Don't put them on the spot. You might even say, Bill, you and I talked about this before the meeting and you gave me a really good point about it. Would you just like to tell people what that was? But try and bring everybody in. And that may mean breaking into groups. There's all sorts of ways of bringing the quieter member in. And then review is a chair should, but very rarely does, review the meeting. How did that go? How did we get on? Was that a successful meeting or not? How's the year gone as a committee, as a group? Has it been a good year? What do we learn for next year to get it better? Clarity, harmony, agreement, involvement, review, CHAIR.
Brilliant,
5,
John.
Not 3, sorry.
5. Well, you nailed it. That's great. And go back through and pull out those training notes from John's website. That's useful. That's really helpful because we spend a lot of time in meetings, don't we, as administrators, and or organizing meetings and helping to support those who also run meetings. So some helpful advice there, John. Thank you. Okay, last 2 questions then. Here's one. Help. I have a challenge with my senior leader or manager who interprets governance and policy different to me. We can't agree. And maybe a little bit of context to this. I think it's maybe related to some of the COVID guidelines of mask wearing and not wearing masks and how we manage those kind of things. So I think there's some challenges there where a leader just wants to let loose and it's restricting our worship, so I'm going to get rid of all these restrictions. What are your thoughts on that? How does someone approach that?
I've been quite intrigued. I've gone from this past weekend, from a church where everyone wears masks still to one where nobody wears masks. Been in both. And so this is a real issue. But it could happen on other issues too. It doesn't have to be COVID. And it could be a minister with a laid back attitude to issues of health and safety. Or even, dare I say it, of safeguarding. And you as administrator are saying, the law says, we need to do it like this or whatever. I think it all depends on relationship. Your relationship. Do you respect each other? If it's a senior minister and an administrator or an operations person, do you actually respect each other's views? Therefore, can you state your view to the minister and give reasons and show it as a well laid out? If they are your boss, if you are responsible to them, then at the end of the day, if they go a different way from what you would like, there's not much you can do about it. And in fact, if you go around grumbling to the congregation, that can create problems.
Yeah, that's not
so
good,
there
is
has
it?
to be a discipline of an employment
Yeah.
contract here. But don't get to that point until you've actually stated your case with reasons and said to the person, this is what I think we should be doing. It is my duty as administrator, operations person, or whatever, to tell you this, but the decision has to be yours.
Yeah.
And if they then say, don't worry about masks in church when you're singing or something like that, and you would rather have the caution, that there's not much you can do about it.
Yeah.
But there may be more subtle reasons going on here. It may be a minister who wants to be in control and wants to make sure you're not in control. Or, there could be underlying issues like that.
Yeah, relational issues, yeah.
All you can do is, I think, take it to the Lord in prayer. And at the end of the day, you have to fulfill your requirements legally as an employee.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And there's not much you can do, but do it. But it depends on if you have a relationship where there's respect, it's more likely for the senior minister to listen to you.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think the point you make, John, about responsibility is key here, isn't it? So am I, the trustees of our church are legally responsible for certain policy to be followed. And so I can advise and influence, but it's their decision at the end of the day. They've got to hold that accountability. And I have to somehow find peace in that, that goes, okay, I've said what I need to say and I've left it with them, and we'll leave it there, and I'll get behind whatever else I can do to, that doesn't just mean that I stop there, right, I'm not helping anymore, but it's going, actually, I need to continue to support these guys, even though they may not make the same choices that I would make here if I was responsible. So we need to.
If we're a control freak ourselves, that's very difficult.
Yeah.
If we want to control, just be aware there may be issues that in ourselves.
Yeah.
Take it to a close friend. Don't share this publicly, but take it to a close friend or a family member. Explain the situation and just say, am I being stupid about this?
Yeah, absolutely right. And I think your point about not going around talking about it. So, you go around Sunday saying, well, I wouldn't do it like this, and it wouldn't be my recommendation, but this is what the pastor's decided to do. I mean, that's going to cause division and conflict, isn't it? Which is, unnecessary and not what God calls us to do. So, yeah.
It does depend on the issue, and it does. I can be very general in this answer. I realise.
Yeah, you're right. If it's things like legal issues of health and safety or safeguarding, then there should be, we should be whistleblowing these things, or we should be raising them. That it really does depend on the situation, doesn't it? If it's about having hand sanitizer, at the front door, or not having it at the front door, having it somewhere else, then there's certain things that we can let go. And
if you're worried about the legality, put it in writing. Make a statement to the pastor or to the trustees, whoever it is. Put it in writing. I firmly believe that to follow legislation, we should be doing this, this, and this. Then you're in the clear. Yeah. But if you're worried about the fact that there could be a legal case brought by somebody, and you as administrator might be held responsible, you're in the clear if you've got that in writing. Yeah.
That's good. That's helpful. All right, last question. John, you've done amazing so far. We don't have enough volunteers to run a church project. Nobody wants to close it down, but the burden's falling on me. I can't keep it going. So I'm just thinking about, coming back from COVID. Before we were doing a project, everyone expects us to get it back up and running to where it was, but the support isn't there, in terms of volunteers, and it's falling on a staff member. So how do we help someone in this kind of situation, this scenario?
Close it down.
Close it down.
Sorry, I will say more than that.
Shut it down.
There is a theological view in churches that to start something up is success and to close something down is failure. That is rubbish. We need to close things down to enable us to focus on what should be our priorities. And many churches are trying to copy the big church, the mega church down the road, and do everything, and we can't. One of the key points made by those who write on church growth is do a few things and do them well.
Yeah.
And so I think it's huge success when a church closes something down and waits to see what comes out of it. And that might be nothing, or it might be something new emerges a year later.
Yeah.
If you can't cope, I can't keep going, I think was the question. The burden's falling on me. It's a burden. Listen to the language. We don't have enough volunteers to run it. All the signs are in that question that this needs to be closed down.
Yeah.
And we don't want to. I know we don't want to.
Yeah.
But might it not be the right thing to do?
Yeah. I think it does.
So I was going to say training notes 34 on my website. Training notes 34, closing down a church activity. Tries to make the point.
John, what training notes have you not got on your website? I love it. Yeah.
I haven't done lots of things yet. Yeah,
that's really helpful, isn't it? Because I know if you've carried a burden and you're picking up the pieces in the background, I guess it's making known to folk, who your line manager, that you are carrying it. You are carrying these extra things, and they are becoming more and more difficult. Often we don't communicate those things early on. We kind of communicate them when we're at breaking point. So if you can get a conversation saying, look, the last few weeks it's been like this. I want to make you aware of it. I'm gonna, I'm available next week, but I think we really need to take some time to consider if this needs to stop. And it's using that kind of language. And again, in everything that we've talked about, whether there's been conflict or disagreement or challenges, it's always about the way that we do it, isn't it? We apply grace to people. We give grace. We're suspicious about our own hearts and our own weaknesses. In order to, we all want the same thing, to advance the gospel, to support the church. And sometimes we have to make difficult choices and closing ministry down, like you say, John.
And church is all about who we are, not about what we do.
Exactly, yeah.
And some churches, you go to their website, and the first thing they tell you is, this is our program for the week. We're doing this and this and this and this. We're busy. We're busy. People use that word, busy word. But hang on, a church is supposed to be who we are, a congregation, an ecclesia, not about lots of activities.
Yeah.
Yes, we do things to enable us to be the people that God wants us to be.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the activity program is not how our church will be judged.
Yes. Yeah, that's spot on. Yeah. Very good. Well, mate, you've done 10 questions there. Thank you for those who sent them in, and we hope they're helpful. If we can help you specifically, if you've heard the answer and gone, I've still got a question, or I'd like to chat this through more, please get in contact with the church office. And if John's available and he's free, then we can. But if not, I'd love to be able to offer some time and just to chat that through with you and encourage you if we can. But don't be on your own in this, and I think one of the messages of UCAN, and you're a church administrator, get connected with that network there, where you can find peer-to-peer support, and all the things that we've covered today in the questions are things that many other administrators across the country have experienced at some point.
Gavin, perhaps it's just worth mentioning, in UCAN they have forums, online forums, where this sort of stuff can be discussed between administrators. They're brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's a Facebook forum, and you can pop your question on and get some support and prayer. So these are great. So get in contact with the church office, link up with UCAN if you're in the UK. If you're listening to this outside the UK, then explore the possibilities of some of those other networks that might exist. But John, mate, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. It's lovely to be able to talk to you. We love you at the church office and what you're about and what you're doing. So
you're doing great work yourself, Gavin. Thanks so much.
Pleasure. So thank you for your time. Well, thank you for listening to the podcast today. And if you've been on the video and you've been watching, thank you so much for doing that. If you've got any questions, send them into questions@thechurchoffice.co.uk. Keep checking out the church office resources. Please look at John's website as well. There's a training note for everything. Okay, check it out. And all the ones that we've referenced today, you will find this a really, really useful resource. So please do that. John, goodbye. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Gavin.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.